So a couple years ago, way back in like, say, 2021, I decided that it was about time that I pushed myself out of my comfort zone when it came to the electric guitar. I had been playing and practicing in my bedroom on a pretty regular basis. However, it had been 4 years or more since I had really left the church guitar setting. And most of my friends who wanted to give me some good advice were like, if you want to get good as fast as possible, you have to go where better players are, which essentially means you have to start showing up to jams. Now, this wasn't a completely new idea to me. I mean, I had played with bands before and I had riffed with friends, but the idea of showing up to a completely new jam where some of the other players I didn't know and might have been playing in like a professional context for a long time, because that's the way it goes. And all of this added on to this hypothetical idea in my head that I would get there, I would stink, and then all of these professionals would be like, never invite this dude to anything ever again because he's just the worst to play with. And I would overall just embarrass myself. And even with all of that fear looming, one night randomly when I was playing at church and we ended at a pretty decent hour and I already had all of my gear in my trunk from that gig, I decided to pull out my phone to see and check if there were any gigs in the area. And wouldn't you know, there was one within 15 minutes away. So it took all of the courage I had in me, but I was like, let's do this thing. Now, once I got there, I started to notice that this jam was quite unique. It was at this barbecue restaurant over by the docks that I'd actually been to a couple years prior, but didn't notice before. But once I stepped in that room, there was this different sort of level of energy, and I wanted so badly to be a part of it. So I walked over to the sign-up sheet, put my name down, waited my turn, and started playing. And I started doing that week after week after week. I by no means was anywhere near any of the professionals that would come through and just play for fun, but there were weeks where I felt like I held my own a little bit, and there were weeks like I felt like I should never pick up a guitar again. But I remember one of those weeks in particular, something new, something fascinating happened to catch my eye. You see, I'd been going there for probably about a month or so and felt like I was starting to get a pretty good grasp on who the regulars were. But this night in particular, I happened to be running late, so I walked in the door and I had to get in the sign-up sheet while people were already playing. But once I sat down after having signed up, I noticed something. There was a guy there, he was playing, and I had never seen him before. But that wasn't really the unusual part. You see, at this jam, most of what I saw was Strats, Tellys, Les Paul, some variation of some very classic blues guitars. One guy might bring in like his Epiphone 345 every once in a while, but this guy in particular, he was playing a headless guitar, which was something that I really hadn't seen in that kind of blues context before. And my immediate reaction was, okay, who is this Pliny prog rock wannabe? Like, why is he here and who does he think he is? So as I'm sitting in my seat, silently judging this man for no reason, the band gives him the look like it's his turn to solo. And I'm not joking when I say from the very first note that he hit, my jaw was on the floor. I mean, I'd seen guys before who were on a completely different level technically, but it felt like this man was playing a completely different sport. I mean, he was pulling in influences from jazz, from prog, from rock, from everything. It was outstanding. Never before in my life have I felt so inferior having to get up and follow that up when it was my turn to play with the band. And I was so completely dumbfounded by everything that I had just seen that when everything was said and done, I got up out of my chair, I walked up to him and I was like, homie, your playing is off the charts. My name is Mike, by the way. And he introduced himself. He said his name was Adam Wisman. And he was this absolutely insane professional guitarist. I'm talking jazz, rock, prog, anything that you name, he could play as good as anyone that I had ever seen. But like I was saying before, this was the first time that I had seen the headless guitar in this type of like B.B. King, Stevie Ray Vaughan style of context. And it felt different, it felt exciting, it felt new. And I think for one of the first times in my life, I looked at that headless guitar and I was like, I really actually want to know what it's all about. But that wouldn't end up happening until, well, much later, actually very recently. So here we go, and I do think I'm ready. This just feels like one of those really cool things because it's not just that I don't play headless guitars. There might only be 3 or 4 guys that I listen to that play them. I knew that it would be light, but I didn't think it would be this small. I feel like this is the guitar player's version of Welcome to the Dark Side. Like, it is so different from any other guitar I've ever played. I don't even know, where do you tune it from? I'm sitting here like, where's the input jack? Or like, why do I have a 5-way if these are humbuckers? Like, all the questions are coming through my head. But that was really just the first first look, like the tipping point, I think right now I'm much more well equipped to formally introduce you to my Strandberg Bowden NX6 and to tell you that this is without question the most out of my element that I've ever been with a guitar in the last couple of years. And a lot of that really started with the ergonomics. So from the first time I started playing it and picked it up, especially when it comes to the neck, I could tell just how different it was. And I had been warned beforehand from one of my friends who has a Strandberg that it has what's called the Endure neck, which means that instead of the usual rounded planes, these are actually flat on the back. And you combine that with the fact that it has a 20-inch fretboard radius, making it the flattest neck that I've ever played by a hot minute. I thought the adjustment time was going to be like substantial. Realistically, it wasn't. That wasn't the thing that most surprised me. None of the ergonomics on the neck really took that long for me to adjust it. What took a minute was, well, these guys right here. So like I was saying before, figuring out the neck and figuring out the pickups felt like two completely different mountains to climb. Because once I took this out of the box, I was like, humbuckers, I know what those are supposed to do. But when I started doing my research, it was like, oh, there's a 5-way here. What are those middle positions actually for? Because when I started with this, obviously I went to the 1 and the 5 position, the things I usually use when it comes to humbuckers. But then once I went to the 4, I was like, oh, okay, this is a little bit quieter. And that's when I had to research and find that the 4 is just the outer coil of the neck. So what would the middle and the 2 position be? Will that be the inner coil and then one of the outer coils? That's when I figured out that the 2 position is both outer coils. And the 3 position is both inner. So at the end of the day, what did we learn? And I think to put it pretty simply, one of the things I absolutely love about guitars is just how different types sound different. Strats sound different than Tellies. Tellies sound different from 335s, which sound different from Les Pauls. And they're all about the different players and their different sonic preferences. But one of the other cool things is how different they feel based on like the 14-inch radius on the neck, or you can go with the more standard 7.25 on some of the more vintage Strats. But then you get a guitar like this. And my guess would be that a big part of the reason why people love these guitars has less to do with the sonic qualities, not saying it sounds the same as everything else, but more to say that it's a completely different experience ergonomically, not just than a Strat and a Les Paul, but basically than any other guitar you'll play. And I think it's cool knowing just how much of a different experience it must be for each individual player. For me, for example, the neck didn't take that long getting used to, but ergonomically, when it came to this body shape, once my friend told me, oh, you don't just play it like this, you play it like this, I was like, wait, whoa, what are we doing here? Or even the different configurations of the 5-way, or just figuring out like, where to put your input jack. And what I'm really curious about is how those opinions and experiences actually change over time when you've been playing a guitar like this for more than, say, a week. Like, do you prefer your tuners down here? Do you prefer the shape of this neck? And how do you see things going in the future? But at the end of the day, I don't think it matters what I think. What matters is what you think. So please let me know. Have you played a Strandberg? What do you think of headless guitars as a whole? And what do you think of the tuners being down here? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. It was really cool to be able to check out the Strandberg. And I think just more recently, I've been wanting to get more and more out of my comfort zone, even when it comes to like the offset guitars and now into the headless thing with all of the different ergonomics. But if you do happen to want to know anything more about this guitar right here, I got it from the homies at Sweetwater. The links are in the description. Make sure to check it out. It's one of the best ways to support the channel if that's something you want to do, or if you're just curious about any of the other gear that I use in any of these videos. make sure to check out those links. Also, thank you so much to Adam Wisman and Pliny for completely making me reconsider all of my thoughts on guitars like these. Thank you to all of my patrons. There's some extra exclusive content on there if you want to check it out and join the community. Like and subscribe if you had a good time, and most importantly, most important of all, have a fantastic night.